It began not with a massive press conference or a flashy trailer, but with a quiet and sterile update to a terms of service page on the official Xbox website. In the early opening weeks of 2026, the digital landscape of the entire gaming industry shifted fundamentally. Microsoft, the corporate giant that had spent the previous decade positioning itself as the populist champion of the gaming community, finally dropped the mask. The 2026 Xbox Game Pass restructuring was officially here, and it carried the weight of a monumental industry pivot. This was no longer about winning the hearts and minds of a skeptical audience. It was about the cold, hard math of maximum profitability per user. For the 35 million subscribers who had come to rely on the service as their primary gateway to digital worlds, the news was a sharp awakening. The Ultimate and PC brackets, once lauded as the gold standard of value, saw significant price increases. Scheduled to take effect in the first quarter of 2026, these changes signaled a definitive pivot in Microsoft's long-term strategy. The era of user acquisition at any cost had finally ended. To truly understand the magnitude of this shift, one must look at the raw numbers. For years, the global gaming community had grown comfortable with the $16.99 price point. It felt like a fair trade for a library of hundreds of high-quality titles. But the 2026 reality is a different beast entirely. We are not just seeing a simple inflation adjustment, we are witnessing a total recalibration of what a digital license is worth. Microsoft pointed to currency fluctuations as the primary justification for these regional hikes, but seasoned industry analysts knew better. This wasn't a sudden reaction to a volatile market, it was the conclusion of a strategy designed to hook the consumer before tightening the financial grip. Why did they wait until 2026 to make this specific jump? Because the market was finally primed. Before we continue diving into the hidden costs of this new era, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. This global shift affects every corner of the gaming world, and your perspective matters as we navigate these changes. Looking back, the best deal in gaming was a reality that seemed too good to be true. Many of us remember the $1 conversion, where a simple trick net years of premium access. Microsoft essentially bought its audience, subsidizing millions of gameplay hours to ensure their platform became the default choice. However, the ghost of gaming past eventually catches up. The old model was unsustainable. When AAA budgets for flagship titles regularly exceeded $300 million, the math for a cheap subscription simply stopped making sense for shareholders. From a corporate perspective, the mission had to change. The goal shifted from being the most loved brand to being the most profitable one. Consumer-first altruism has been replaced by the calculated necessity of recurring revenue and steady growth. Yet the price hike is merely the tip of a large iceberg. While the community argues over fees, Microsoft is preparing a maneuver that few saw coming. They aren't just raising the ceiling, they are moving the walls of the entire ecosystem. There are whispers of a new tier, a pro level that threatens to gatekeep the experiences we have taken for granted forever. But this price increase is just a clever distraction for a much more unsettling development. The real change isn't in what you are paying every month. It is in what you can no longer touch or keep. Ownership is being redefined under our noses, and the games you thought were yours are starting to feel like temporary ghosts in a machine you don't control. The stage is set for a digital revolution that might leave the traditional player behind in favor of a compliant subscriber in a world where you own nothing and control even less of your library. The future awaits. The arrival of the new Pro tier marks a fundamental shift in how industry blockbusters reach the consumer. Microsoft is no longer content with providing a broad library. They are now leveraging their massive acquisitions of Activision Blizzard and Bethesda to create a tiered experience of exclusivity. The bait is irresistible. The next Elder Scrolls or the latest Call of Duty appearing as day one exclusives, but only for those willing to pay for the highest tier subscription. This is the AAA trap in its most calculated and effective form. By gatekeeping the industry's most anticipated titles behind a premium wall, Microsoft forces users into a higher price subscription bracket. The authority of this move is backed by the staggering reality of modern game development. When costs soar toward $500 million, the subscription revenue must match the ambition. Microsoft is using its status as a corporate behemoth to reset global market expectations, proving that while access is easy, premium access comes at a significant cost that only a few giants can sustain. While the service boasts new arrivals, a great purge occurs in the background. Digital decay is no longer a bug, it has been rebranded as a strategic feature of the 2026 model. To push monetizable titles, Microsoft is removing legacy classics. This is the introduction of artificial scarcity to a medium that was once defined by its permanence. The concept of the vault has emerged, where childhood favorites and iconic titles are tucked away, appearing only during special promotional windows. If you didn't finish that classic RPG from the early 2000s, you might find it gone by 2026, replaced by a newer iteration designed around recurring microtransactions. This cycling of content ensures that the library remains fresh, but it strips away the historical depth that fans once took for granted. The digital library is becoming a revolving door, and the games we love are now treated as disposable assets rather than cultural milestones. This leads to a chilling philosophical shift, the definitive end of game ownership. In 2026, the transition from buying a game to renting an experience is finally complete. The updated terms of service make it clear that you purchase a license, not a product. In 2026, your hard drive is just a temporary parking spot. This license reality means your storage is no longer a personal library. It is merely a space for data that can be revoked at any time. There is a deep emotional trigger in the realization that once a subscription lapses, the hundreds of hours invested in these digital worlds vanish instantly. You own nothing, and the sense of control over your collection is an illusion. Microsoft is conditioning a generation to accept that gaming is a service like electricity, utility-based and strictly metered. The permanence of a physical disc or a permanent digital purchase is being eroded in favor of a model where the consumer is perpetually tethered to a monthly bill to keep their history alive. Indie developers find themselves caught in the gears of this massive machine. The shift has created a brutal attention economy where the payout structures have changed fundamentally. Developers are no longer rewarded for how many people buy their game, but for how many minutes they can keep a player engaged. This favors addictive gameplay loops and live service elements over finite, narrative-driven experiences. For many small studios, the dream of a breakout hit is being replaced by the constant struggle to stay relevant in a sea of rotating content. Competitors Sony and Nintendo watch this massive experiment from the sidelines, observing a market becoming increasingly volatile. As the industry debates these ethics, a physical transformation looms. If digital licenses are the future and ownership is dead, the very existence of physical media becomes a liability. As 2026 progresses, whispers of an all-digital console refresh are growing louder. This restructure isn't just about money, it is about total ecosystem control. This shift ensures players are locked into the ecosystem with no way out. The hike is just the beginning. The global fallout of this transition was immediate and visceral. As 2026 dawned, the global gaming community reached a critical tipping point, giving rise to what economists now call subscription fatigue. The initial excitement over high-profile additions was quickly overshadowed by the realization that the cost of entry had become a recurring, escalating burden. Social media became a digital battlefield where unsubbing movements gained massive traction. Longtime loyalists, once the loudest defenders of the platform, found themselves struggling to justify the monthly drain on their bank accounts. Conversely, a group of defenders argued that the sheer volume of the pro tier still ever outweighed the price of individual titles. This polarization has created a fractured community, where gaming status is increasingly defined by one's subscription level rather than their skill, history, or genuine passion for the medium. The retail market felt the blow most acutely across the globe. For many decades, physical game stores were the heart of the industry, but the 2026 restructuring acted as the final nail in the coffin. With the push toward an all-digital ecosystem and the focus on the Game Pass app, the physical disc has become a relic of a bygone era. Storefronts that once held midnight releases are now being replaced by general electronics retailers or disappearing entirely, leaving the physical distribution of games to the history books. This transition effectively erases the secondary market and trading in old titles, ensuring that every dollar spent flows directly into the coffers of the platform holders. This seismic shift has triggered an industry-wide domino effect, seeing Microsoft's aggressive move toward maximum profitability. Other giants like EA Play and Ubisoft Plus are already signaling their intent to follow suit with similar tiered structures. The industry is rapidly moving toward a future where gaming is a tiered luxury service rather than a mass market hobby. The introduction of an ad-supported tier by Microsoft confirms this strategy. By offering a lower-cost version requiring users to watch mandatory commercials between gameplay, Microsoft has brought the cable television model to the interactive world. It is a stark reminder that the user is either a premium subscriber or a product to be sold to advertisers in a relentless attention economy. By the middle of the year 2026, the strategic goal becomes undeniable. The transition to a cloud-only horizon. Microsoft is systematically devaluing hardware in favor of software ubiquity. The mission is no longer to sell a plastic box, but to ensure the Game Pass app is pre-installed on every smart TV, smartphone, and handheld device. Even the traditional console war is losing its meaning. The battlefield isn't the living room, it's the interface. They are moving toward a future where hardware matters less than account credentials. Ironically, Microsoft might finally end the console wars, not by winning them, but by making the console itself obsolete. This restructuring is not a mistake. It is a masterfully calculated risk by a corporate giant. The core objective is absolute control. Control over data, distribution, and recurring revenue. This transition represents a fundamental rewrite of the player-publisher contract that has existed for decades. The developer's dilemma and the loss of physical media are merely collateral damage in a war for total ecosystem control. As the dust settles in 2026, we are forced to confront a very difficult philosophical reality. The convenience of a digital library is undeniable, but it comes at the heavy expense of our gaming heritage. The legacy of titles that defined our childhoods is now subject to the whims of licensing agreements and corporate servers. When we no longer own the experiences we cherish, we lose the ability to revisit them on our own terms. The cost of convenience is the loss of history. Ultimately, 2026 marks the year the art form changed its soul forever. We must ask if the value is worth the autonomy we have surrendered. When the final page is turned, will we still be players or just subscribers in a world where nothing is truly ours ever again?